Hey, Herman.
What's up, Dan? How are you?
Everything's good. You?
I managed to get showered and dressed and everything.
I want my guests clean, man. I want my guests clean, and I wanted you back because obviously a most fearful sacrifice is out. The P500. My God, I forget the title of the game. GMT.
Oh, Plum Island Horror.
Plum Island Horror will be coming out. Do you know when?
No.
That answers it. That answers it.
Well, here's the story. It's been through play testing, two separate sessions. Hundreds of reports. We've done the whole thing.
Yeah.
And now it just sits in the queue waiting to get into the art department, which has taken quite a bit longer than I originally anticipated. I thought it was going to be in the art department in March.
Yeah. Well, you know what? With my experience, with your experience, designer experience, you basically have no, I don't know, how much control do you have over timing and stuff? You got nothing, man. You're just a number. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And hey, Steve, thanks for the question. Just to answer Dan's question. Yeah, I mean, once I tell GMT or any publisher that the game's ready to go, it just goes.
It's out of your hands.
In GMT's case, it goes into that art queue.
Right.
And I'm sure they're just overworked.
I'm sure.
Have you seen? I mean, you've seen the P500. I mean, there's like dozens of games on there.
No, I know. And the thing is, it's not like GMT doesn't want to make money. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
I mean, the only thing I can do maybe is just try to drum up support for the game so we get more pre-orders. And I'm assuming that if it has it's almost at 1,000 pre-orders now. It's just a few short. I'm assuming if it hits that 1,000 mark, maybe it gets bumped up on the schedule a little bit. I'm not sure even if that's the case.
Hey, look, man, if I can help, or if I can help GMT help the Plum Island Horror, let me know, man. It'd be my pleasure, okay?
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I just try to get the word out. And honestly, I mean, I could only write so many articles about it, right?
I understand.
And I was going to do a detailed playthrough so people can see how it actually flows, but I didn't want to do it without the final art because then, of course, I get all those emails that say how ugly the game is. So it's you're kind of caught in between there, a little catch-22, right? So all I can do is just keep my fingers crossed, hope it gets through art. I'm really anticipating that they're going to have a lot of fun with the art because it's not your normal GMT game, obviously.
No.
They don't have to do NATO counters and pictures of tanks. They get to do all sorts of crazy stuff, and I'm assuming they're looking forward to it and going to have a ball with it.
So basically, Herman, I think we've probably answered our own question. They don't have any stock art for something like that. They don't have any templates, so we're starting from scratch, man.
Exactly. And what I've seen so far, their preliminary workups, they're really on the right track with the general look. It's going to have this kind of, pulp fiction 50s horror thing going on for it. And that's what we wanted. I mean, it's like Dawn of the Zeds, it's created to a little tongue in cheek for people to have fun with. It's not a serious strategy game. It's a community. It's a community participation game. You're supposed to laugh. You're supposed to cry. You're supposed to yell.
You say it's not a strategy game. Like you're trying to say something. You know what I mean? Like, what are you trying to say when it's not a strategy game? Who are you talking to?
I mean that you don't go into these like with Dawn of the Zeds because that's the obvious comparison people will make with it. Except this game, Plum Island Horror, is designed as a cooperative game from the ground up, right? Zeds was designed as a solitaire game. It was a solitaire game for many years, with no cooperative part. Only the third edition had the cooperative part put on by Alan Emmerich and his team. But what I mean is, I don't want people to pick up the Plum Island Horror and go, "Oh, I got this game figured out, the perfect strategy." It's about it is about problem solving, right? Puzzle figuring, right? How do I take a different faction each time and beat the horrors with other people, maybe by yourself or with other people? How do you coordinate all that? So the strategy, I guess, is more of a communal cooperative type strategy. Like, how do we solve this puzzle together? If Joe gets in trouble and Nancy gets in trouble, how do I help them? That kind of thing. Because you can all lose together. I mean, that's the point of the game.
Right, right.
And
look, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you, when you're saying that, are you talking to war gamers and saying they're stupid? They'll never figure it out?
No, but it's definitely, see, this is interesting because a few years ago, I had a gaming group on Saturdays when I was still up in New York, and we met with 4 people. And one of the shortcomings of war games is that when you have 4 people, you're normally not going to play a war game because 90% of war games are 2-player games, right?
Yeah, unless you play a monster.
Unless you play a monster, and then even then you're kind of force feeding in 4 people, like, you know, you take that side, I take this side. So we started playing more cooperative, true cooperative games, non-war games, right? And I really enjoyed that experience because it's a different mindset, right? It's a different approach to gaming where all of a sudden you have teammates and you're working together to solve a common problem that you're trying to beat the system.
Yeah.
And I always enjoyed that kind of like, hey, we get to all play a game together instead of breaking into two-person groups.
Yeah, or we all win together or we all lose together.
And right. And that whole idea of we all can lose this game together if we don't do this properly
creates tension,
anxiety, and it's a different way of thinking about how to play a game. And I find that really entertaining. So doing that
stuff we're trying to get away from, tension and anxiety and stress.
Well, it's not real life anxiety, it's fantasy anxiety.
And is Fred involved?
Fred Manzo?
Yeah. Oh, okay, great. He's the developer, right?
Right. So Fred and I played the game initially many years ago, but was it 3 years ago now, I think? When it first, I always use Fred I always play by myself first, and then I have Fred in there, and we hash out how the game's going to work, and then we grab a couple friends and do that, and then it went through the whole playtest process at GMT, which was months and hundreds of feedback and all that. So, I mean, the game has evolved quite a bit from its initial design.
And how's Fred doing?
Fred's doing well. He just had surgery on his hip, so he's a little immobile, but he's doing great.
Right. Okay. Well, you know what? Let's answer Steve O's question.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, man, I am more than thrilled at the reaction to A Most Fearful Sacrifice so far. Fingers crossed. You know, obviously, it's stunning to look at. Which of course I'm happy with, but as a designer, you also want to have people play the game and enjoy the gameplay. And so far, the feedback I've gotten has been very positive. I'm very happy. It is selling like hotcakes, Steve. I mean, I was just on the phone with Mark Walker this morning, and I think we're on the 3rd reorder from Miniature Market already. So
really, eh?
Yeah, it's going to sell out.
That's a big game, man. That's a big game.
Yeah, I was shocked when he told me that. So they're running out of games. They're going to sell out pretty soon.
Well, first of all, it's got Herman Lettman designing it. Second of all, it's got a tried and true mechanics, the blind sword that you keep updating. And I'm going to ask you about that. And before I ask you about that, which I just asked you about, IG Critical, yeah, we were talking about the Plum Island horror beforehand.
Yes.
Now we're getting on to A Most Fearful Sacrifice because I have to make Mark Walker happy. He doesn't know this is on, and I haven't seen Herman in a long time, and I was supposed to go to WBC. Life rears its ugly heads. I'm sorry. What can I say?
Yeah, well, this all started because I actually sent an email to Dan this morning asking if he was going to be at WBC, and then I see, this is Dan. The Dan you see on this show is the Dan you get in real life. So we always say, hey, he says, you got to come on the show. And I say, well, you have to give me a heads up, right? You got to give me some leeway. And so I know. And so what do you think his next email to me is? Do you want to come on now?
When are we going to do it? Look, Putin could put an end to all of this. You know what I'm saying?
So I said, can I take a shower and eat lunch first? So that's how we ended up at 1 o'clock. So.
Sorry. Oh, Herman, and my condolences on Schnitzel, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, you people out there who have
Oh,
dogs.
I can't believe I got someone at the door. No, it's just okay. It's a UPS guy.
Oh yeah, it's
He's
always
gone
the
now.
UPS guy. It's
I
never the
live.
FedEx
I was
guy.
gonna have to get up and go. I mean, that's live. Okay, Gracie. Anyways, what
So
was
the
my
UPS
question
guy.
that I
It's never
asked?
the FedEx guy.
What was my question that I asked before?
Oh, you were just saying about, well, you were just talking about Schnitzel. So just so people know, you know, so we've had this dog Schnitzel for over 10 years, and he just passed away in February. And Nancy and I still can't get over it. I mean, Nancy cries every day because of it. It's just becomes part of your family. So thank you for your condolences. But
Herman, I can't believe I'm doing this live. The guy's knocking at the door. Sing a song, do something, okay? I'm gonna be back.
All right, go do your thing. So while Dan's gone, I want to thank everybody for their support of The Most Fearful Sacrifice. It's just really been a blessing. Speaking of blessings, we were blessed with probably Rick Barber's most fantastic map that he's ever created. And I know that Mark and I talked at the beginning of this whole thing, and the reason the map is the way it is, other than, you know, the wow factor, is that we really felt that not only does Rick have to do Gettysburg, but Rick has to do Gettysburg on this huge map so that so everybody can really appreciate the artistry in his work. So I know that's, you know, not everybody's a fan of that style. And I think one of the problems is that, you know, there's so much detail there and so many interesting things that it gets kind of crowded on those, you know, the regular 22 by 34 inch maps. So we really decided to just blow this thing up so that everybody can appreciate Rick's work and to make it more playable. So now, you know, a lot of the problems that were there before, I'm just discussing Rick's map.
Yeah, go ahead. Thank you very much, and I'm terribly sorry about this.
That's okay. So we just wanted to make sure, so we just figured that, you know, it's 15 square feet, and if anybody deserves 15 square feet on the map, it's Rick Barber and his artistry. So that's why we did that. Thanks, Rob.
You know what, Herman? I hate to divulge this to you. I hate it, but I mean, one of the reasons the game struck my was a Herman Lutman design, but what nailed it was the Rick Barber 15.
Of course,
it nailed it for me. Like, boom! I'm getting it. I don't care. I still have it in shrink. I don't even know if I want to open it. But right now it's not opened.
Well, and that's, you know, Rick and I got together with Rick all the way back in my very first design for Victory Point games. It was Gettysburg to Wheatfield, and he drew that map, and we've been simpatico since that day because I'm all about theme in my games. He was all about theme in his maps, and we just struck it. So that's why he's done all the Blind Swords games.
That's a match made in heaven, man.
Well, thank you. But I mean, he just brought out that extra level of immersion that I wanted in my games, right? Especially for Civil War. I mean, I thought it just sung to everybody about, you know, what a Civil War battlefield would look like in those days. So
yeah. No, it's beautiful, man. And I'm gonna have to open it just to look at the map and stuff like that. But going back to your blind sword system, you have updated it a little bit. Is that right?
I've what?
You've updated the mechanics of the blind sword system.
Well, I know, and people yell at me all the time about this. Even my developers yell at me about this. I can't help but tinker with these kinds of things, right?
Like, have you made it in your mind, Herman? Have you made it better, or have you made it more pain in the ass, pinpoint stuff?
No, if anything, I've made it easier to play.
Okay.
So the Revolution version of the game actually the original inception of the original version of the game was Duel of Eagles. I did for White Dog Games. Oh, thank you, Steve. I really appreciate it. The Revolution version is a much more Long Speed Attacks, all those games. That system is it's the system, right?
So anybody knowing this system, easy peasy for Most Fearful Sacrifice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that game system is regimental, more tactical, a little more crunchy, that kind of thing. Eventually, I decided. So that game you just held up, Long Street Attacks, we've all kind of agreed, and I talked to Roger Miller about this, that for a chit pull system, that's about as big a footprint as you want to get.
Okay.
Before, the chit pull kind of falls apart in the sense that at some point, if you go much larger than that, you're going to end up having, 60 chits in a cup or something, right?
Right.
So then I had to start thinking of, well, how do we expand? How do we get this game system into these larger battles without bogging it down? So my first attempt at that was The Devils to Pay, which was the one great thing about there's a lot of great things about Tiny Battle Publishing, but one of them is that it's a great place to go, and Mark is really open to new ideas and let you experiment with something. So The Devils to Pay was honestly just an experiment, like, I'm going to create this system, let's see if it works. And we put it out there and it worked. People liked it. That is the direct link to A Most Fearful Sacrifice. But even A Most Fearful Sacrifice had to be simplified even more. My big thing is I can design any game of any size and all that. It could be, but if nobody plays it, hey, Ruff. By the way, Ruff, I was watching a lot of Status Quo videos today, and it reminded me of you because Rick Parfit was up. He was up. Franz Rossi was up there with his black vest and his white T-shirt.
I used to get into
that's a British thing.
I used to get into Status Quo.
Oh, well, Ruff, just to diverge for a second, people who are music fans, one of my favorite bands ever is a band called Status Quo, which most people in the United States don't know about, but it's one of the biggest bands in England. And I got into them back in the 70s. And my greatest moment ever was being able to see them live in New York because they were the opening act for Peter Frampton. And my friends and I were there to see Status Quo. We weren't there to see Peter Frampton. So when I was on with the War Room with Ruff, he's British, and I mentioned to him how I enjoyed Status Quo. So he always dresses up now when we're on.
and talking about Ruff, I just recently found out this he's a musician. He's been a musician all his life. He teaches it, blah, blah, blah. Did he ever call me out talking about music? No. He doesn't, you know what I'm saying? Like what? I'm Little Beans. I'm Little Beans, man. What can I tell you? But Herman, is the game chit heavy?
Which one?
Most Fearful Sacrifice.
There's no chits. That's one of the changes I made.
What do you mean there's no chits? How do you put the formations down?
You do it with cards.
There's no chits in the game.
Well, I mean, there's no chit pulling.
Right? No, but that's what. How many pieces are there in the game?
It's only what is it? I don't even really know. It's 300 or something.
Okay, so it's not like we're not going to have stacks of towers happening here.
No, and there's only one marker that you can put on a unit too. See, this all feeds in. So that's where I was going before. Is that I appreciate people buying my. Oh, look at that! I appreciate buying my games and all that. That's great. I want people to play the games.
I know. See, I that's why I was reluctant to tell you. I still have it in shrink.
It's okay. It's okay. So the only way people are going to play games is if it's accessible, right?
Yeah.
You got to be able to get on the table and play it. The rules are therefore streamlined because the more I design, the more I learn shortcuts and ways to do things to design for effect. One of the things I did learn is that using cards can be much more efficient than using chits because you can still pull cards the same way you pull chits, but cards can contain a lot of information on them. So you can cheat a little bit by, instead of putting a table somewhere else on, in the book or something, you put the table on the card. Or instead of having a description of all the events somewhere else in the rule book to add another few pages, you put the description of the event right on the card. So instead of drawing chits, you're pulling cards from a pile.
And do you have any description of what I say, useless description that tells you about that regiment or that. You know what I'm trying to say?
Text?
I'm sorry.
Flavor text?
Yes. Thank you.
There's no flavor text other than there are portraits of the commanders on their displays. You know who goes with which corps, what their names are, that kind of stuff. But there's no other stuff. There is a lot of flavor in the counters. Okay, so you will see if you look closely. If I actually have a little section in the back of the scenario book or the rule book, I don't even know. I think it's in the back of the rule book, where I explain what we did with some of the artwork on the chits, on the units.
Okay.
You will notice that some units have different uniforms. Some units have a certain more standard look to them. Some units have a different flag. Some units have their mascots with them. So all this flavor, rather than being in text form, is actually
involved in the game as chits or color.
Right.
Yeah. And who want, because look, that's a long process and it's a lot of labor doing all that stuff. Did you present that to Mark, or did Mark say we're going whole hog?
It was a combo of the two. After I finished after I finished Devils to Pay, of course, the next question people would ask me is, when are you doing the second day of Gettysburg? Because the Devils to Pay only covers the first day.
Right.
I said, well, I feel a little uncomfortable doing a game just on the second day, since I did a game just on the second day called Long Street Attacks.
Right.
Then the next natural thing is, well, why don't we do, then people are going to ask me for the third day, right? Or a campaign game. It then became a problem logistically of, well, if I do a second day, will it match up color-wise and schematically? Will it match up perfectly with the first game?
Yeah.
Will the counters look different? All that, how do you, and then the second day was actually technically larger than the first day. So now you got to have a bigger game for the second one. Will it fit in the little box? So I eventually just said to Mark, I said, why don't we just do one Gettysburg game, the whole thing with this system, and just have at it and try to do the ultimate Gettysburg game? And then he said, all right, we're going to do this Flying Pig style. So it's huge map, huge counters, the whole shebang.
Yeah.
And the system had to naturally evolve again, because now you're talking about not only the first day, the second day, the third day, pieces of the first day, pieces of the second day, pieces of the third day, but you're talking about having to offer all 3 days as one scenario, as one game. Eventually, I came up with the whole card system, because you activate by corps. Then I came up with the division. When you play the game, you'll see, and people who have it at home will know what I'm talking about. But you're actually drawing very few cards and activating then the corps you drew, and which divisions can activate are on your display. So you have to decide, if a corps has 3 divisions, you have to put them in priority 1, 2, and 3. Like, which of these divisions do you want to make sure activate? And you put them in the number 1 slot, and maybe the division in the number 2 slot will activate too. So it's kind of like chit pull in its net effect, but it's much easier to manipulate.
Okay. Going into the future, and I know you can't tell the future, but you've become, Herman, you've become the guy for the American Civil War. You're the go-to guy, man.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, you probably designed more games than anybody else on the bloody Civil War.
It's possible. I don't know, but I appreciate you saying it. Thank you. But there's so many great other guys in there.
You've become the authority, basically, especially on Gettysburg, for God's sake.
Yeah, Gettysburg is definitely a try. I think I have, what now, 6 games on Gettysburg or something like that. Yeah.
And is that the end now of Gettysburg?
Yes. As a matter of fact, the new Civil War series I'm working on for Tiny Battle will specifically be designed to be even easier, and it will cover battles that are not covered very often. So there won't be any Antietam's or Chickamaugas or Gettysburgs or Shilohs. They're all smaller, lesser known, well, not necessarily smaller, but certainly lesser known or less covered battles of the Civil War.
Okay, and the reason for that, the reason for you not to continue with the Flying Pigs model as such, is it because of Rick's passing?
Well, it's funny, Mark and I just talked about that this morning too. So obviously, A Most Fearful Sacrifice is very popular. You know, hopefully it'll stand the test of time and people will play it all, and then it'll work out great and people will love it. Given that, obviously we've talked about doing the next one, and you know, the next one would probably be either Antietam or Chickamauga
in the Flying Pig style.
Yep.
Big box and everything, shebanging.
Right. And one of the discussions we did have, honestly, is Mark and I said, well, we don't have Rick now to do this, you know, and that's not saying that there's not other great map artists.
It just breaks the continuum of the series.
Breaks the continuum.
That's all.
It's a certain style that I have not seen replicated by anybody else yet. Maybe there is somebody, I'm not sure. There are other artists I've seen that have come close, you know, that kind of, you know, mirror that style.
Right.
So that is a consideration. I mean, that is obviously one of the main attractions of that game is the map, and we're hoping that we can find somebody to fill those shoes, which is it's a tough pair of shoes to fill.
Oh, we got a question here. I'm messing up the rules.
I haven't. Thank you for asking, but that's an interesting idea. I kind of like what I played Mosby's Raiders back in the day.
I was going to ask you, what about Mosby's Raiders, man?
Yeah, I kind of like that game, and we do, by the way, have so the new series we got coming up with Tiny Battles called Shattered Union, and the first game I'm working on, just about to finish it up, is on Champion Hill, Battle of Champion Hill, which was the big battle before the Vicksburg siege. So it's a very important battle. Claude Whalen's going to do Cross Keys, Port Republic. I'm going to do the third game, which is going to be on the Battle of Fredericksburg. And the last one is being done by Dale Gutt, and it's going to be Brandy Station, which is an all-cavalry battle, just to tie into the Quantrill's Raiders question there. So maybe that would be something in the next set of 4. Since we have that cavalry model that's going to be out there, maybe we could do that.
I know there's a battle, and I might be mistaken at the name Bunker Hill, that's not represented at all. I don't see it. Am I right about Bunker Hill?
Bunker Hill is the American Revolution.
You see, that's why it's not in the Civil War. You see, and I stand corrected. I'm just a groupie. I'm a groupie, Herman. I'm a groupie, man. And what about doing? And I know this is ridiculous, but there's some companies that do these.
This is where the UFOs come in.
Well, no, we're going to talk about that. But there's these companies that do these huge games, TSWW. I mean, it takes years for them, you know, and that's, you know, that's not a game for me. It's impressive, but it's not for me because the minutia is I can't focus.
I'm the
what
same
about
way.
Doing a whole Civil War game that style, man? Is that just too grand?
Are you talking about the war?
The war.
Oh yeah, well, no, yeah, you're talking about totally different scales. Honestly, for me personally, I don't find strategic Civil War games that interesting because they're usually about the South holding on,
right?
You know, and having almost zero chance to win anything, right?
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, they're kind of as games. I don't know. I mean, I guess you could mold the victory conditions in such a way that the South could win, but.
Well, I mean, look, in history, and correct me if I'm wrong again, Herman, the Confederates had the edge for a hell of a long time, man. Didn't they go up to 63 at least with wins?
They were winning, but this is why Vicksburg's so important, right? Once Vicksburg fell, that was basically the end of the Confederacy because that cut them in half, that cut the Mississippi line, everything, right? It was just a matter of time before the North was going to strangle them.
And what year was Vicksburg?
63. Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a good question, Herman.
Yep.
And you are, you've done the Prussian War. the Prussian, what the Prussian,
Franco-Prussian War.
Yeah, the Franco-Prussian War. So
yep.
Going back to Napoleonics is easy peasy for you.
Yeah, it's interesting that you would ask that question because I actually was heavily involved in Napoleonic wargaming when I was doing miniatures. So I had painted up thousands of French castings when I was doing only miniatures games. So I was really into Napoleonics was like my #1 thing for many years back.
Okay, so you're well versed in that history then.
Yes.
Well, let's go, Herman.
And I actually have a design sitting on my computer for Tiny Battle called "They March Against Us," which is on the Battle of Leipzig, 1813.
Why wouldn't he bump it up to Flying Pig?
Well, that is a possibility.
Yeah,
it is a possibility. I mean, a lot of people have asked me, can you take blind swords to the Napoleonic Wars? And the dynamics are a little different. You're talking about strictly linear warfare, that kind of thing. But yes, I mean, I would like to do a Napoleonic series one of these days. So yes, the answer to your question is yes, and I may have something brewing in that department.
I feel that's missing in your repertoire. Napoleonics.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
You're damn right. I'm right.
It could be. Well, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I would like to do Napoleon.
You know what I'm saying?
That's one of the first things that attracted me to the Franco-Prussian War. That's why I did At Any Cost for GMT. Is I'm a very visual guy, right? So so when I saw those, like when I played a game, I forget it was I think it was Rob Markham's Blood and Iron. I was just immediately drawn to the idea of these armies in Napoleonic style uniforms using modern weaponry. It was just really kind of cool.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, yeah. Wasn't the machine gun first used there?
Yes, the mitrailleuse by the French was used.
Yeah.
If you can envision a Gatling gun, even though the mechanism that you used to fire it wasn't the same, but it was that same kind of presentation.
Okay. I know here Simon Weinberger says some of the battles of the Italian Wars of Unification are very contemporary with the ACW as well.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, I'm actually just about halfway done on a design on the Battle of Königsgrätz, which was in 1866. And one of the companion battles with that was the Battle of Custoza, which was between the Austrians and the Italians. He's talking about basically, and I'm going to do Solferino, which was 1859 as well. So he's right. I actually just mentioned that because there was a war in South America, the Triple Alliance War, I think, it was in 1866, occurred at the same time. So it's interesting. It is interesting to note that the Königsgrätz and the Franco-Prussian War were only a few years after the Civil War ended. So it's all basically the same time period, but the styles of warfare were so different. Another interesting thing.
So Herman, let's talk about Herman Lettman. So you moved recently, right? Say about a year ago?
2.5 years ago.
It hasn't been that long, for God's sake. So you moved from where to where, and how's life treating you where you moved?
So I moved from Long Island, New York to Knoxville, Tennessee. That's my Tennessee hat.
Is there a big switch in the people?
Yes.
Is it more relaxed?
Everybody here is a hell of a lot friendlier.
It really, eh? Okay.
I swear to God. One of the reasons, so people a lot of times ask us, well, why did you pick Knoxville? I'll tell you why. Because we loved it here. We went on vacation here. We went to Pigeon Forge in Gatlinburg, which is near here. Pigeon Forge is the home of Dollywood, and it's a big touristy type place, but it's beautiful. It's in the Smoky Mountains, and Gatlinburg is a mountain town. And we just fell in love with the area. And after we went on vacation here, we came down to actually look around. And so Knoxville is the closest city to that area. And we have no connection here. There's no relatives down here. I don't have any friends down here other than Roger Deal, who was a fan of my games. He lives in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. As the only person I knew down here. And we picked up and retired down here just based on the fact that we loved it.
Yeah.
And we go up into the smoke. We're 30 minutes from the Smoky Mountain National Park. Knoxville has concerts and theaters and flea market. It's got everything, and it takes me 10 minutes to get there. You park for free. There's free music. The food's fantastic. Our rent is over $1,000 a month or less than.
Oh my God, that's $1,000 of buying games a month, man.
Yeah. The people here are just wonderful. Even the kids here, not that I want to sound like an old fart, but even the kids here say, no, sir, no, ma'am.
Yeah, I like that.
The waiters and waitresses are polite. I don't want to go on and on about it, but
what did they say in Long Island? Okay, you can't say it. I guess.
Honestly, we couldn't, and Nancy's a retired teacher. We couldn't afford to retire on Long Island.
Unbelievable.
Our rent in our old place is now almost $4,000 a month. That's
insane.
Yeah, it's incredible.
And did you build your still yet?
I used to drink scotch and now I drink bourbon. So
yeah. And has there been any bourbons that have stood out that you haven't tried in Long Island?
Well, I didn't drink bourbon at all in Long Island.
Okay.
I was drinking scotch. So I came down here and I started futzing around with the bourbon and I fell in love with it. So now
what's one of your preferred bourbons?
Well, everybody's preferred bourbon. Well, I won't say everybody, but most everybody's preferred bourbon is Buffalo Trace.
Really? Eh? Okay. Yeah. Okay.
You can't get it here. And the funny thing is, around in this area, if you find out that there's a liquor store that gets a shipment, which by the way they do not pre-announce, they just show up there. There's a line out the door because word gets around. There's a line out the door and the stuff's gone in a day.
For Buffalo Trace.
Yep.
So they just do it for export then, man.
Well, Buffalo Trace is made in Kentucky, so
yeah, I know. So they sell it other places other than Kentucky, man.
Yep. Yeah. Well, yeah. All the liquor stores will have it, and there's liquor stores probably around that you can find it quite easily. So
I can get Buffalo Trace, believe it or not.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I might buy a bottle tonight.
You should. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's got that sweet. I'm not a rye guy. I don't like it's too dry, man. It's too top notey, you know. Like I smoke a pipe. Give me some round flavor, man.
Right. My favorite type of bourbon is obviously it's got to be sweet. That's the whole reason you drink bourbon. But for me, it's got to have a little kick to it, right? Not too much kick. Like a proof that's around 101 to 105, something like so it kicks you back a little bit. It has character.
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of people like very smooth whiskeys, but I don't, because to me they're like water.
I understand.
When I drink it, I want to get a reaction out of it. Like I want to notice it.
I get you. You don't add a dash of water to your bourbon or whiskey?
I don't. I drink it straight, neat.
What a man. What a man.
Well, once you do that and you start watering it down, like I used to try to order old fashions, and now they just taste like water to me. So
no, I'm not saying watering it down. I'm saying just add a few drops to open up.
Right, and there are certain bourbons, and I guess scotches too, that if you add a little bit of water, it actually releases more flavor because it's water soluble.
Absolutely.
Things.
Yeah. I mean, Chantal and I mean, Chantal is a big Scotch aficionado, man. Let me tell you, she's got the nose, eh? And we bought some Abunad. I forget the name of the company. Anyways, it was 62% alcohol, so that's probably 120 proof.
120, right?
And Chantal's like, I'm gonna try it straight first, and it's like she tried it straight at 62, and she said it was smooth as silk.
Wow, those are the ones that'll sneak up on you.
Yeah, Chantal and you like to hit it. But anyways, that's regardless. So Herman, let's get into real stuff now. You're a zombie guy, so basically you're a child at heart. You never grew up, and that's why everybody loves you, man.
Aren't we all?
I guess. But there's some people that I'm not going to get into that. Please stop. And there's you're a zombie guy at this. So this past few years, there's been this UFO thing. Now, you know what? I don't know why I believe that those are really unidentified flying crafts. How can it be the Chinese? Do you remember the last thing? It was the Nimitz, which is an aircraft carrier, and it comes with a whole town. Besides the Nimitz being a whole town, it comes with a whole town of protection around it. There were 9 unidentified flying objects around the Nimitz.
Yeah, there's a lot of military sightings of UFOs that are.
So, I mean, if it was the Chinese or the Russians, they would have decimated that instantly. Why wait? Fry the Americans, I say. That's what they would have said. That's what they would have said.
That's right.
So what do you think about stuff like that, man?
Personally, my personal feeling is if you don't think there's other forms of life out in this universe, you're crazy, right?
But I mean,
obviously there has to be.
Do you buy into the fact that they're actually here? They've been here for millennia. Maybe they are part of. When I say us,
I do watch Ancient Aliens once in a while.
Yeah, me too. Then that's why I just wanted to talk about stuff as if we were sitting at a bar or something.
Right,
man. You saw that pic of that guy saying, "Woo! Look how fast that guy's going." And first of all, the guy who's flying that plane ain't flying a cheap plane. That guy's booting it. Okay, so for him to notice that this thing is just pulling 45s and going into water without anything, so they're displacing gravity, man. Have you seen Rob Lazar?
If it's not some weird trick of light or some weird atmospheric thing, you can't explain it. It's
no. Did you watch the Bob Lazar thing?
Yes. The Area 51 guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think about that guy? Like, he doesn't look like he's a flake. He's a nuclear scientist.
I know. I'm like this. I'm not.
Man, he was talking about the anti-gravity thing. Like he was supposed to reverse engineer it.
No, I get it. I don't know. I'm thinking if he really knew that much about stuff like that, he probably wouldn't be around to talk about it.
And that's another thing too, man, because I swear to God, he's opening his mouth a little bit too much, and I'm sure they would have nailed him.
Is this a segue into my new game that I'm doing?
And I'm going to say, so why have you not done UFO stuff, man? I mean, actually, you have. You've done the Tiny Battle Publishing. I forget it. What's the name?
Dimension X.
Dimension X.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what's your next game? UFO.
So my next game, which will be coming out a couple of weeks, maybe.
Really?
Yeah. It's called Vultures Lead the Way, and it's a sci-fi game from White Dog Games. It is in magnificent style and crowbar in space. So take Invaders from Dimension X and mix in a little in magnificent style. And now you got Vultures Lead the Way.
So we're gonna have random pop-ups.
Well, what you have, there's 2 maps that come with it. One's on the moon and one's on Mars. The idea is that these alien beings, I don't know if you've ever heard the Fermi paradox, but the Fermi paradox is, where are all these other aliens if there's so many,
Yeah.
And so I actually named the aliens Fermicians after Fermi.
And yes, you do have a sense of humor.
And they land on Mars. Mars is occupied by them. This isn't the future, of course. So you have to send out the 124th Galactic Ranger Battalion, which are called the Vultures, and it's set up like in magnificent style. So you have 9 columns. You have to push your luck and get your Rangers, who come in a variety of 4 different types of units. You can set them up any way you want. You push your luck. You push them up against the Fermicians who are defending, who also come in a whole variety of different types of units. They have all sorts of special effects. They have things they shoot at you. There's tons of sci-fi events. It was a lot of fun to design. And then you also have a map for the moon, which has slightly different terrain and slightly other order of battle considerations for the moon. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, and that'll be out very shortly.
Now, what's the core you're sending up? The 124th?
Yep.
Is that the same core as in Dimension X?
Almost. Actually, some of the units. So the Phoenicians actually have certain other alien races that they've captured, and they are mercenaries in their units, and each one of them is named after one of the races from the Invaders from Dimension X series.
I love Continuum, and that's what I wanted. I'm glad you're doing that, Herman, because that's cool. There's
and again, like Plum Island Horror, this is designed. If I'm laughing while I'm designing it and coming up with all these crazy things these aliens can do to you, it's done for fun. And I always say, if you're not having fun while you're gaming, you're doing it wrong.
Absolutely.
I see too many people just hovered over boards, steam coming out of their heads. They're getting headaches. They're not moving for hours on it. You have to have fun doing this. And I mean, when I play with my friends, I want to laugh. I want to cheer. I want to have a good time doing it. And like I said, I've always said the greatest reviews I get on any of my games, and it just happened the other days, is when people just report to me about something that happened in the game as if they're just telling me about an event. It's a story, a narrative of what happened. No reference to rules and who won or lost. It's just, hey, this really cool thing happened in my game, and they just tell me about it as if I'm reading a book or something. And that to me is the greatest compliment.
You created a narrative, and I mean, that's what you want, man.
That's all I want to do.
Yes, it is a real island.
Yep, you are correct. That's why it's named that.
Have you ever been there, Herman?
I've taken the ferry past it, and that's what gave me the idea to use
Are you allowed to take tours there?
No, you're not allowed on there. So
it's still a research center then?
As far as I know, yes.
You think it's a UFO research center?
It's more likely biological, which gave me the whole idea for the premise so Plum Island. The premise is that there's a laboratory at the end of Plum Island, and they're doing all sorts of experimentations, and this superstorm comes in, knocks out all the security and electricity. The vats, erupt, and there's all sorts of trouble. So I got the idea from Plum Island. And by the way, for the good people that, I know I've said this before, but people who play Dawn of the Zeds, Farmingdale's a real place too. I'm not that imaginative when it comes to these things.
Well, like in the Reckoning, you were pretty imaginative with naming some of the towns.
Oh, and Dead Reckoning?
Dead Reckoning, sorry.
Well, Denny Springs. Denny's my daughter's married name right now. And she lives in Colorado, which is why I said it in Colorado. So, you mean the Abbott and Costello references?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can't help myself sometimes.
Yeah. and that was developed by Fred, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And Fred. Now, obviously Fred has a sense of humor, and he agrees with the ridiculousness of some of the names and all that. Do you ever have any pushback?
Fred is one of the worst offenders when it comes to bad puns, and he's come up with quite a few of the Easter eggs that are in a lot of our games. By the way, it's set off the coast of the Carolinas, and the reason I did that, other than I don't like to point to the exact location, because it's supposed to be a fictional island, so I don't want to say Plum Island is off the east coast of the Long Island, but one of the reasons I did that is there's a unit in the game that I insisted provides moonshine and victuals as supplies. So I had to give that more of a southern flavor. So that's why I made it off the Carolina coast.
I see. Going back to Plum Island, Herman, is that place off limits to humans? Like,
there's workers there.
So can you actually grab a boat and get off the island and take a walk?
As far as I know, you're not allowed on there.
Like what?
You can't drive there either. It's an island, so there's no bridges or anything. Yeah.
Are they going to shoot you if they see you?
I don't know if they'll shoot you immediately. If you don't leave right away, they might.
That's very interesting, man. And that's You said right off the coast of Long Island. That's like next to New York City, basically.
Well, Long Island's it's a Long Island. It's named Long Island for a reason. So we were 3/4 of the way out on Long Island when we lived there, and it was still another hour past us to get to Montauk Point.
Holy moly! Okay, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what else was I going to say? I was just going to come up with something. I forgot.
Plum Island.
Second.
Shooting. Well, what are you designing right now?
I was just working. Well, I have one project that I was working on just before we got on air that I'm not allowed to talk about. It's for a European publisher. I can say that.
It's a French European publisher.
It's European publisher. And they just asked me not to talk about it just yet.
I get it.
It's a lot of fun. I can probably tell you it's kind of close to the game we just talked about, and UFOs and things like that.
Will it be available in North America?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm also working on another game for White Dog Game on the Battle of Königsgrätz, which is the Austro-Prussian War. So Mike asked me to do some kind of easy playing. I love doing, and I'm also a customer of this stuff too. I like small, accessible war games.
Yeah.
Something I can set up and play myself in a couple of hours, or with a friend in a couple of hours, clean it up, put it away. I just bought 3 games. I'm going to do a free advertisement for the Historical Game Company, LLC, which is Steve Kling's company. He just did a whole bunch of small boxed games. They're printed by Blue Panther. If you want to, Blue Panther.
Steve's company, yeah.
Yeah. And 4 pages of core rules, beautiful counters, with 100 units or something like that. And they had these cool canvas maps. They're 11 by 17, but they're made out of canvas, kind of like almost like a placemat.
Yeah, I know. Hollandspiele usually has them once in a while. And it's
printed
by
Steve.
Steve.
And then I use them, and they're really cool.
Yeah, I know, man. I know. They roll up, and it's you bring it to a bar or a pub or something, and it's nice.
Right. So I like those. I like the White Dog games, a lot of their smaller games, obviously Tiny Battle. And that's because I was a fan of, if I did anything from SPI, it was those quads. I love those quads, man. You got 4 small games, common set of rules, bang them out, play them, entertaining, well-designed. They were great. And yeah, I've always appreciated that. Because again, like I said, I want my games to be played. I don't want people to buy my games and say, "Well, this is I can't get
keep them wrapped." Herman, did you ever get that game you were asking me about? I'm trying to look for it here. That little steampunk World War I game.
Landships.
Landship. Did you ever get that?
Yeah, I actually they have a Kickstarter out now.
Really?
Yeah, you're talking about the dice game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a Kickstarter out now, and I actually kickstarted it.
Oh, I'm going to check it out. Thanks for telling me, man.
Is it Pocket? Oh, Pocket Landships. That's what it is, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
Pocket Landships?
I think it's Pocket Landship. Oh, well, somebody will look it up, maybe.
Yeah. And what about a game like D-Day Dice? You ever play that?
That's on my list because I see you play that, or you mention it a lot.
You know what? Chantal and I played that, and Chantal does not play games. Chantal does not like anything I do on the net. She doesn't like my music. I'm surprised she's still with me. I don't get what's going on.
I was just going to say, what's she doing?
What the hell is going on? Anyways, we played that for 1 year every Saturday.
Really?
Yeah, because it was just roll the dice, make your decision. Do you have the cards to combat the mines or whatever? And it was just stupid fun for an hour and a half.
By the way, thanks to you, I just picked this up. That's because you held that up, and I go, oh damn! I played that game well, I don't want to say how long, but it's a 50th anniversary edition.
Man, and I hear it's a horrible game in terms of the narrative in that game. Basically, you got to nuke the most people you can.
Yeah, it's not politically correct. So no, nobody who plays war games can say anything about that. So.
Nah, you're right. You're right. You're right. Anyways, man. Well, Herman, if you don't have any other news that Herman Lutton's coming out with, I'm going to cut this, and I appreciate you being here. It's unbelievable. We
do have another Invaders from Dimension X game that
no Fred's kidding.
Fred's working on Planet of Doom.
I like it. I've got the trilogy, man. I've got the Dimension X, the Stone guys, and the Bug guys.
Yeah. So this is going to be the fourth one, and then what we're planning on doing. I mean, we always have plans. What we want to do then is maybe next year release like all 4 of them in a deluxe box and bigger pieces, and just really doll it up and do it as a one set. Here you go. What else? I got so many. I have so many games. I think I may have 5 games coming out this year. The way things are rolling.
Mozart used to do that on his pool table. Have like 6 operas going at one time.
Yeah, it is kind of funny when Nancy walks in here and sees me. I got 3 different things spread out trying to work. I got to concentrate. For the people who ordered Miracle at Dunkirk for Legion games, that's basically done. It's just waiting for Legion's production cycle.
Man, that's been there for years, Herman.
Yeah, it's been a while for them to come out.
I think my firstborn wasn't happening yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So I mean, the game's basically done. It's just waiting for art and to get produced. That's all. What else do I have? Man, there's so many things going on.
Well, you got the White Dog games happening.
So the White Dog is Volters Lead the Way, and then a game on Königsgrätz, and after that a game on Solferino. I know I'm forgetting something. There's another European company that I have a secret project. There's 2 of them. I got something coming out. I'll answer William in a second.
You got a World War II game coming out?
I have, Dunkirk's World War II.
Right.
I have a World War I game that's going to kickstart for Worthington probably in the fall.
Any tanks?
Nope. It's called Death by Flags and Trumpets. It's about the opening campaign of World War I. And it uses a brand new system. It uses a system that I'm really, not to bore people too bad. It's called the River System. It's used for Batman Gotham City and for the Conan the Barbarian game. And the idea is that you have to you have a track with different costs, and you have to place your units in these spots. And when you spend AP, you can activate a unit. Let's say you pick the 2 AP slot, you activate that unit for 2 APs, you lose 2 APs, you activate this unit, goes to the end of the line, and everything slides down. So now the other units become cheaper to activate. But if you want to activate this unit again, it's now going to cost you whatever your last slot is, which is like 5 AP, let's say. So that's the premise, where you have to plan how your armies are going to activate based on where they are on this sliding scale. It's really kind of a cool mechanic. So I'm hoping it'll work for war games.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't Chad Jensen have a system like that in a game called? My God, he's got a grid where if you choose this, then that costs less. Curse something.
One of his non-war games?
No, it's a war game.
Oh. It's not Fighting Formations, is it?
Fighting Formations, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played that, but that's the only one I could think of that you.
Okay, yeah, that's it. That's it.
Cool. Do I prefer World War II Civil War or sci-fi? I'm honestly not a big World War II fan, generally speaking. Civil War, sci-fi. I'll tell you what. As a designer, I love doing sci-fi and horror. It's just fun to do. Hey, let's play history.
Hey, V Gates, Jan. That's Jan Heineman, one of your kin.
Jawohl. I hope he's a Rammstein fan. That's another one of my favorite bands, German industrial metal band.
I was just listening to them with Chantal, and Chantal was just not paying attention. And I was blasting the hell out of it in the kitchen while we were having supper. Oh yeah.
I never get tired of watching them in concerts.
And you know what? Did you ever see an interview with those guys, especially the guitarist? These guys are well spoken, with tons of experience, and it's like, and they're not the youngest rock stars in the world.
No, they've been around for a while. Yeah.
Bloody hell! And you know what I've been getting into a lot, Herman? ZZ Top, man.
Oh, I'm glad.
I'm just like, I'm listening to them, and I'm listening to the guitarist. What's his name?
Billy Gibbons.
Jesus, man. Billy Gibbons used to hang around with Jimi Hendrix.
Right. Yep.
I mean, do you know the wealth of information this guy's got?
Yep. Yeah, he used to be in a band called the Moving Sidewalks before ZZ Top, and that they hung around with Jimi Hendrix. Yep.
Oh man.
Going back. Oh, right. So the question, so designing wise, I love looking up. I love researching Civil War battles and European war battles. No, there's no question about it. But for example, A Most Fearful Sacrifice was a year of really hard research, especially a battle like Gettysburg, where you have to get everything right, or at least close to right, because people know. So all those reinforcement schedules, where people start, what pieces of brigades came in later. Like, for example, there's a unit, there's a Smith Brigade in the game, and I keep getting these questions. Well, there's 3 counters for Smith, and only 2 of them come in. Well, that's because I found out that one of the regiments didn't show up until the 3rd day. So when you go further on in the reinforcement schedule, you'll see that it pops up on the 3rd day overnight. So all that detailed information, I had books all over here. And after I had the system designed, then I had to do scenario design, right? Which I don't know if people realize how much work goes into a war game, because you're not only designing the system, you're researching the orders of battle and make sure they're right. And then you're designing all the scenarios, which is a lot of work because you got to test them all.
Now, Herman, why don't you delegate that research part to people like Jim Ozarski or people in the know of we were talking World War II, right? No, we were talking Civil War. Yeah. Why don't you ask experts so you don't have to look at the books and all that and rely on them?
Because I'm the designer. So and that's not to say you don't use other people's designs to as a matter of fact, I have a Königsgrätz game here set up right now from Command Magazine, and I'm laying it out to see where that designer put all the Austrian units.
No way.
Right? Compare
So you got faith in that designer?
Well, what I do is it's easy. It's much easier for me to visualize where everybody is when I lay the game out. Then what I do is I'll take the books I have, which I have all over here, and I'll read those sections and compare it to what he's got. And I may agree or disagree with something, but at least it gives me a starting point to start visualizing the battle.
Okay.
So what was I saying?
You were talking about
So the design of the scenario is a ton of work. I mean, it's just at the end of the Most Fearful Sacrifice, once I had this system designed, then it was just me coming up with the scenarios and sending them off to the developers, and they would actually play the scenarios. I didn't have time to design the scenarios and play them. So I would come up with each of these different scenarios, send off the paperwork to Claude and Zeke and Fred and Steve, and they would play it. Right.
Come on, because Jan's an intellect. He's one of those guys there. That's his problem. Jan, come on, schnell raus.
And so my point was that you do all this in-depth work. So once in a while, doing a sci-fi game or a horror game is a welcome break, because all I have to do now, I can just think about the game. How do I make this game as entertaining and fun as possible?
Yeah.
I can justify. Now, granted, it still has to have an internal logic. Even sci-fi, horror, fantasy still has to have an internal logic to itself. Correct? You do want to make sure that everything.
Yeah.
relates and
Yeah,
it
it
makes
works. The
sense.
mechanics work.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know, when I'm sitting here coming up with event cards for a sci-fi game, I just laugh hysterically. I go, "Oh, this would be cool! A quantum phase nullifier." You know.
So let me ask you, Herman. Then why do these pain in the ass war games?
Well, I mean, essentially, it's your true love, right? I mean, I got into this because I got into wargaming because I love the history and I love
Okay.
the way games present history. And I mean, personally, I don't play games because I want to beat the other guy or
Yeah,
gal.
I understand. Yeah.
I'm playing it because it's entertaining to me to see this history, play out. Now,
Yeah.
granted,
You're playing to
I've
have
said
fun.
many times, the historical research in war games is normally, I mean, the way I approach it, you concentrate on the orders of battle, where people set up, and when they come in. Because after you move the first unit or roll the first die, you are now playing a fantasy game of that historical event. Right? Uh-oh, because we love history, Herm. See it. Oh, I won't be at Concert World Expo. I will be at Origins and WBC.
WBC.
Yeah.
When is WBC again, Herman?
Uh,
July?
End of July. Yeah.
End of July, eh? I've got a Porcupine Tree concert happening in
A what?
Porcupine Tree.
What's Porcupine Tree?
It's probably not your style.
Not a heavy metal band, I know that.
Yeah, no, they're not. They're a progressive rock band.
Oh, they
so
sound like a progressive rock band.
Yeah, it's not your style. You're more of a.
Oh, it's like the Disco Biscuits and what's the other? The cheese something. The cheese the something cheese incident.
Oh, forgot. I don't think so.
And Fish and bands like that.
No, no. More like a King Crimson. More like a.
King Crimson. Okay.
Yeah, more like a Genesis infused Pink Floyd.
Wishbone Ash. Yeah, I know who you mean.
Yeah. Anyway, so July, yeah, you're making me think again about WBC July, for God's sake, man.
It's July
24th to something, to 28th.
Like yeah.
Are the Players 8 going to be there? Those rats.
I'm sure they will be.
Yeah, I know. I had so much fun with those guys. For God's sake, man.
I actually emailed with ARDWULF this morning. He's going to be at Origins. I asked him if he was going to be at Origins. So he is going to be there playing Europa. Talk about a big old war game.
and I don't look, I know he wants to play the game because he wants to play the game. He doesn't care about if people like it or not. But he should be an ambassador of war games, and maybe start with something like Invaders from Planet X or something, for God's sake. I
think well, Gary's he's a great ambassador for wargame.
Of course, if you want to play monsters.
He is one of the smartest guys I've ever heard on.
I know.
He is a smart dude. Yeah.
Every time he talks, I feel stupid.
Well, that's your shtick, right?
No, it's for real. It ain't my shtick.
You mean it's not an act? Oh no.
It ain't an act. I told you I'm a groupie. Okay, let's grab the last question here by William. It seems that the most difficult part of designing a historical game is to accurately provide the order of battle and the real logistical problems while allowing for an alternative outcome. That's almost contradictory.
Well, and that's interesting. That's a great point, William, because one of the examples I always use is a Battle of Bulge game, right? So Battle of Bulge games, you can design a Battle of Bulge game, and if it doesn't, people want it to go, however you play it. But if the Germans win, they immediately scream that it's unrealistic.
Yeah, they say that the game is broken.
Right. So again, that's exactly right. So like I was just saying, after you move the first unit or roll the first die, you are then playing a fantasy version of Gettysburg or whatever.
Absolutely. It's an alternative. It's an alternative view, man. An alternative way of it happening.
Right. So you're just providing the theme, the immersion. What would it be like to fight this battle? But you're now playing a totally made up version of Gettysburg. And I have this discussion a lot with people where they say, well, you know, certain units didn't get to a certain spot that they fought historically. And I go,
fog of war, man.
that's the way it happened, man.
Fog of war, man.
You know, you can argue. I mean, if you want to, you can argue that the historical unit made all its die rolls or didn't make all its die rolls, or, you know, whatever. You could always put it in a game context. But if you're going to just ask for a reenactment,
like a historical outcome,
a reenactment of the battle, then just read the book or
that's it,
or watch a documentary. You know, I don't know what to tell you. All I can, you know, for war games, you're trying to make people feel like if they were in command at Gettysburg, this is how Gettysburg would go. But then you can't complain if it didn't go exactly the way it did historically.
I've got something you could tell them. Hey, you, shut the up. You could tell them
I love I mean, I do love all the discussions back and forth. It is fun. I mean, yeah, some people get obnoxious about it. You know, look, you know, we try our best. I do a lot of work on this type of thing in retirement. It's a blessing because it keeps me busy. We do not make a lot of money doing this. Let me tell you.
Here's the
not like we do this for a living.
Here's Jan. Jan's got to butt in. I'd argue, knowing it to be not so popular of a perspective in the bubble, the accuracy is not the point of historical games because it's unachievable. Instead, it's about the narrative and argument. Okay, I agree. Right. I agree.
Narrative is one of the most important things to me. Like I just said before, that's the greatest compliment you can get. So if somebody's telling me a story about the game they just played, they're telling me about their experience at Gettysburg, not the historical experience at Gettysburg. And one of the nicest compliments I get about the blind sword system is that people tell me, boy, this feels like a Civil War battle would feel. And, you know, one of the reasons I designed blind swords to begin with is to make my war games play more like the history books I was reading. So things would happen in history that seem inexplicable in a war game, or things happen in a history book that couldn't happen in previous versions of war games. I was like, well, how do I get these things to happen? How do you get units to fire on their own units? How do you get units to run away from
an order,
from wild animals in the woods because they think it's the enemy, right?
Okay.
Because the smoke is so thick, all they do is hear something. So the colonel says, you know, it must be the enemy. Let's back up out of this really cool position. Things like that can't happen in most war games. You have to create an environment. I call it historical chaos. And chaos is things can happen randomly and against the odds and all that.
They're events.
As long as you can explain it.
You know, God help you ever do a Stalingrad game and the Germans win. God help you, Herman.
Right, exactly.
God help you.
Right. So, you know, you're always fighting those two forces of that kind of thing. But he's right. I mean, it's the narrative, it's the theme, it's the immersion. Do I feel like I'm fighting a Civil War battle? I like playing games and the Blind Swords is built on this, is that you think on your feet, right? It's an emotional adventure rather than chess. So I'm launching my men. Oh my God, something happened, but I thought ahead and I got an extra reserve here in case something bad happened. Or I put some units over here in case something good happened and I could exploit it. So it's more of a thinking on your feet type of deal.
And
thank you, Steve.
People that I've known that have seen battle or have been into battle actually say the most realistic game that they have played was Combat Commander. Now,
I'm a big fan of Combat Commander
because of the cards. If you don't got the cards, you ain't moving. Well, that's shit happens, man.
I have this discussion with a lot of people because I like Combat Commander, and a lot of people say, oh, well, if you don't have a fire card, look,
your gun could be jammed. Maybe you got no ammunition left. Maybe there's a tiger there, you know, and you don't want to move.
And a game like Combat Commander, it's about mitigating. You know the cards are in there, so it's a matter of what do you do in the meantime until you get those fire cards.
That's life.
Part of the game.
It's life, man.
Right. And yeah, one of the greatest things, you know, Fred went to a seminar by one of the authors, John Priest, and one of the interesting things he said, it stuck with me all this time, is that modern students, modern gamers, modern historians don't appreciate how much carnage and smoke is created on a Civil War battlefield.
Oh my God, I saw a reenactment.
Right, and that by the time you're halfway into the battle, nobody knows what's going on anywhere.
No, especially if you got the artillery, man. Forget it.
Forget it. The smoke is lingering. People are screaming. Horses are running.
Oh my God.
So, that whole environment, you can't boil it down into, I know I'm going to move 2 hexes and I know my odds are 2 to 1.
That's very unrealistic.
It's more of feeling the moment and feeling what's going on in the field right now. I'm not sure, but I can prepare a contingency, a plan A, a plan B. That's all you can do, and then you just let it happen. I think it was Moltke that said a commander, all he can do is set up his orders, deploy his troops, and once things are let go, he loses all control. The only thing a commander can do after that point is introduce fresh troops. But once everybody is engaged and fighting and crap is happening, you have very little control. Maybe in an ancient battle, if you were Alexander the Great, you could ride to the front with a sword and, that.
Yeah, even then, I don't think so because, man, anyways. Herman.
So, hey, it's a fun hobby. What are you going to say?
What's a fun hobby? Yes, it is a fun hobby. And I was going to say something else. It's funny. I want to cut the show, but it's me that has a question here. I know that happens at the tactical level or maybe the operational level, what you're talking about. What happens on the strategic level? They're losing all control or smoke and fog of war. That's not really taken into consideration.
Yeah, I don't think on a strategic level it's that much of a factor.
So then basically a strategic game is all situations being perfect.
Well, no, you can pretty much guarantee that you move Army 1 to point A, right? And most of Army 1 is going to get to point A. There could be small friction within that army, but that army is going to get there.
You're right.
Yeah.
Anyways, Herman, thanks so much for doing this impromptu. And it's been a while we haven't spoken to each other, man. I'll try to come up to WBC, man.
If you can't, you can't. Don't knock yourself out.
No, but I have fun every time I go there. Well, the time I went there.
This will be the first time I'll be to Seven Springs, to that location. I used to go when it was at the Lancaster in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Oh yeah, and Uva's gonna be there. You and Uva together. I'm gonna miss that.
Uva Eichert?
Of course he's gonna be there.
Of course.
And I'm gonna miss that.
Yeah, he's a character.
Yeah, I'd like to sit at the table. You guys are probably gonna speak German, and I'm just gonna be like, go ahead.
Drinking beer, close it, Yeah.
Herman, stick around. I'll say my goodbyes behind the scenes. People, thank you very much for doing this. Jan.
Plum Island Horror, get us to 1,000 so GMT moves it up the slots.
Jan, William, Simon, Steve, thanks a lot, man. Dave Imparato. Well, I'll see you around.
All right. Thank you, everybody.